Morning, friends. Today, I want to talk about fear. On a general level, I want to talk about how fear can impact the mind and the body. And more specifically, I do want to share some insights on fear related to this pandemic. See, I've talked to a number of people who have had COVID, and one of the common themes that I'm picking up on, in addition to the physical symptoms that people struggle with, are the mental and emotional challenges that are being faced where thoughts enter the head of, is this it for me? Thoughts of panic, about one's own survival. I want to share a personal story about how this impacted me. Last March of 2020 into early April, I had COVID. Had it pretty bad. It felt like a bad flu for me. I got through it. It took me a couple of weeks to fully recover from the symptoms, to fully get through all the symptoms, I should say, and then a few more weeks to actually get back to my full strength. There was one particular moment that I remember that I had these thoughts. You see, COVID was a new thing. Nobody knew the prognosis. Nobody knew what percentage of people it would affect and what the outlook would be for people on average. And so as I was getting more and more sick, I started to have these thoughts that, what if this is it for me? COVID's killing people. What if I'm next? And I had to fight those thoughts. I had to acknowledge that I was legitimately scared for my life for just a little bit. And I had to do this battle in my mind. And I had to really, really be deliberate and intentional about confronting these thoughts of fear and come through with this new way of thinking that said, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to be strong, I'm going to survive this, I'm going to be okay. And I had to grab a hold of that message because the thoughts were starting to mess with me. I'm finding more and more that this is not an uncommon scenario. And I believe that one of the things that this pandemic has shown us is our vulnerability to fear and just how common fear is when we feel a certain threat. Now, I've talked about this before. Fear is definitely a useful thing in some situations. So this fight or flight tendency, if you see a cobra in your yard, for example, or maybe an alligator is a better example. This is probably not applicable to those of you who live in New Jersey, but if you were to come across paths with an alligator, this fear will motivate you to get out of that situation quickly. So it's useful in that scenario. But with a virus, with this type of scenarios that we have playing out, especially one that attacks the respiratory system, one of the things that fear can do is when you're already struggling for oxygen, fear can cause you to panic. And panic can cause you to breathe shallower. And that shallower breathing is already, having an impact on your breathing that's already compromised. And if we're not careful, it's not the virus that can itself cause us to go into critical condition. It's the fear combined with the virus. You see, when we start to breathe shallower, we're not getting as much oxygen into the brain. When we're not getting as much oxygen to the brain, our thoughts are not going to be as clear. And so there's a couple things that I want to challenge us to do. When we start to feel this panic set in, no matter what it is, one of the first things on a physiological sense that I want to challenge us to do is to be able to slow down our breathing. A lot of experts say the right way to deep breath is breathe in, count to 4, hold it for a couple seconds, and breathe out. This is a useful thing to start to do when you find that the panic has set in so much that your breathing becomes shallow, especially if you're struggling with a virus. You want to be able to get as much oxygen as you can, not only for your body, but also for your brain and for your thoughts. Slowing down your breathing can slow down your thoughts and to allow you to fight this battle a little more clearly with a little more clarity of mind. The next thing I want to challenge us to do, it's going to be hard for some of us, but is to acknowledge when we have these fears. Especially for those of us who might be in some type of leadership position, or maybe you're a parent, or maybe you're in authority somewhere or if you're just the type of person where you just have to be strong for other people. I got to be strong for my kids. I can't let them see me scared. That's okay. But I want to challenge us to be able to speak our fears out into the open. There's something powerful when you're struggling with fear, when you're struggling with panic, to be able to speak that out in the open, to be able to say it clearly, especially if it's an irrational fear, to be able to say it out loud helps you to process the irrationality of it. It allows you the power of speaking it out loud will allow you to recognize what needs to happen next in order to confront those fears. And in some cases, if it's an irrational fear, speaking it out loud allows it to get out of your head, out. And so it doesn't play with as much power in your head as it did before. So speaking it out loud can be powerful. And to recognize fear is a normal reaction to these situations. And in some cases, even if you don't have somebody to talk to speak it out loud in your prayer time. And I want to just point out something, like when Jesus was about to go to the cross, in Luke 22 or 23, I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately, but Jesus was about to go to the cross. He talked about how he prayed and he was sweating so intensely that his sweat drops turned to blood. Now, I'm not a medical expert, but I would imagine that there's a heavy amount of distress involved in that process where your sweat is turning to blood. And I want to go out on a limb and say that Jesus understands what it's like to be scared for something. And if Jesus can understand that, certainly we, no matter how strong we might feel like we have to project that we can certainly be willing to admit the times where that panic is setting in, where that fear is kind of just weighing heavy on our minds. And then the next step that I want to challenge us is just very simply to fight the fear, fight the panic. When we are scared of something, it would be easy to say, oh, don't be afraid, But I want to take it a step further and challenge us to find something to fill our minds with, to replace those thoughts of fear, those thoughts of panic, those thoughts of, am I going to die? Am I going to, fall apart? Am I going to be embarrassed beyond recovery? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my family? Am I going to lose this? Those thoughts that bounce around. We have to challenge them. We have to confront them. We have to fight them. And we have to fill our minds with something healthy to replace those unhealthy thoughts. Just as we close, I don't want to leave you with just, figure it out. I want to give you something specific that I've found helpful. In Psalm 91 is a psalm from the Bible that speaks very, very directly to fear and speaks directly to God's promises in the midst of fear. And so what I want to encourage you to do, once the music starts playing, I want to encourage you to take one of those deep breaths and to focus on breathing slowly. And then as the psalm is read, which I've gotten some help from my kids, thankfully they've learned this psalm and are helping me speak this psalm. I don't want you just to hear it. I want you to visualize it. So when it says things like, he will cover you with his feather, he will shelter you with his wings. Picture yourself as a young bird under the wings of a mighty eagle. And picture God as your refuge. Picture God as your shield protecting you from the attacks of whatever life might throw at you. Start to, as the words play out, get a visual of what these words are saying. God bless you as you focus on Psalm 91.
Those who live in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of Almighty.
I'll say to the Lord, He alone is my refuge, my place of safety.
He is my God, and I trust Him, for He rescues you from every trap and protects you from deadly diseases.
He will cover you with His feathers and shelter you with His wings.
His faithful promises are your protection.
Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day.
Do not dread the disease that stalks in the darkness, nor the disaster that strikes by midday.
Though 1,000 are falling at your side, though 10,000 are dying around you.
No harm will come to you, no plague will come near home.
For He will command His angels to protect you.
He will hold you up with His hand so that you will never hurt your foot on a stone.
You trample on clotheslines, you crush fierce lions, serpents are your feet.
The Lord says, I'll rescue those who love me, and I'll protect those who trust in my name.
When they call me, I'll answer them. I'll be with them in trouble.
I'll rescue and honor them.
Reward them with a long life, and let them see my salvation.